It's another Friday night Photoshop. Hi, I'm Mike Leonard. Tonight we're going to talk about some retouching tools that I use a lot in Photoshop. So let's get started. One of the first tools I'd like to talk about is the clone stamp tool. This is the one that looks like a little stamp. If you hover your cursor over the tool, you'll see this little information pop up and it tells you that it's the clone stamp tool. So here's how it works. I've got just some lettering that I've put up here onto this, just a white canvas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my Alt key down and I'm going to click over this number 1. I just left clicked. Now, as I move the cursor around, you'll see that it's picked up from where I hit that click. And if I just go and click and hold my mouse, I can then go ahead and copy or clone stamp where I was. Now, if you look over the original numbers, see over the number 3, I'm painting 3 on the right, but if you look on the other side, there's a little plus sign there. That's a little cursor telling you where you are drawing from. So that's showing what that's doing. So you see that just did a very nice clone. Now watch what happens when I keep going across. Nothing happens. You see, I might want to try and duplicate that too, but it's not there. And the reason for that is because it only saw what was there when I first clicked, not after the fact, because this second set of 1, 2, 3, 4 was not there when I first started. I can copy this again. I just took my finger off. So now I could copy from any one of these if I wanted now. So let's just go to the second one and I hit the Alt key once again, and I'm going to see how the Alt key takes this from the brush. And by the way, I can use the bracket keys to make the brush smaller or larger. So we'll just make it this large. And if I hit the Alt key and left click once, now wherever I move the mouse, it's going to say start painting or copying from where I originally said I wanted to copy from. And so let's say if I just come down here, and now I'm going to left click the mouse, and I'll just go ahead and paint, and you can see how quickly I can do this. And if you look up above again, you'll see that there's that little source indicator, the little, it looks like a plus sign. That's telling me what we're sourcing from. So you can see it's a pretty powerful tool, and that's how it works. A lot of times people will get, I think, a little confused that they'll try to be cloning something, but they run out of source material. It's really important to look and see where that plus is. So once again, if I come up here and I'll just click on this, I'll come down. Now I can put this anywhere I want on the page. I could put it down here if I want. You see? I've just copied that. By the way, look at this. I can copy what was before it now. And I can copy what was under it. Just like that. You see, wherever that little plus is up there, that's telling me what I'm sourcing from, and then the destination is where I'm at down here in the corner. So that's the clone tool. So another tool that we find very useful is the spot healing brush. Now, if I choose that, once again, I change the size of this brush just by hitting the bracket keys, by making it bigger or by making it smaller. I could come up here and change it right here by changing the size, and I can change the hardness of the edge and the spacing. That's just the softness, but in this case, I'm just going to use the key because it's going to make this a little bit easier for me to see. By the way, if you ever not see the size of the brush, look at what happens when I turn on my caps lock. You don't see the brush. Shut off caps lock. That will save you a lot of time right there. What I'd like to do is I'd like to maybe clone out some of these wires. And so if I just go and get as close as I can here and just drag this right along, you'll see this is going to go and sample what's above and below, and it's going to fill this in. You might have to do it a second time just to kind of get it to blend. You notice there's just a little bit of a difference in the sky, and so we're getting that little bit of a ridge. Now, when you get that, what another great tool to use over here under the same tool is the patch tool. And what that does, if I just come and circle this area that's got that objectionable little rift there, and if I just simply slide this up, that's going to make that blend so you don't even see it anymore. That's really nice. Now, when you have a situation with a bunch of wires that are going through trees like this, or even the ones up top here, one thing that's really nice, I'm going to go back here, and I'm bouncing around these tools, so I'll tell you which one I'm using, because there isn't just any one tool that's going to solve everything for us, right? So in this case, I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to make this, I'm going to zoom in so we see a little more. I'm going to make this so it's at least probably about twice the size of that wire. Because what I need to do is I need to make sure that this has got some wiggle room around it so it knows how to fill. So if I just were to start right here and click once, now if I go over here and go shift click, holding the shift key down and click, watch what happens. Now I've picked up on that one. I'll just go move that like that. If I go up here, I can make this a little bit smaller. I'll click once, and I'll come down here, and I'll go shift click. Okay, doesn't always get it right. Maybe I didn't give it enough. So I have to give this a little bit wider here. And shift click, and I'll just go touch that up like that. Now, I'm just doing this rather quickly, but you can see what's happening here. This is not going to go away. There we go. Okay, so I'm getting rid of these wires. And in this case, I'm just going to go click, and maybe I'll go shift click up here. Let's see how well that does. Yeah, it's close. I'll just grab that one and that one. Now, I know I'm leaving behind a little bit of a mess here. I'm not too concerned about that. I can just come right like that, and that just cleaned that up. And I can do that. Now, we can run into a problem. Let's just see what happens if I just go over all of this. Content aware is probably one of the greatest things that Adobe ever put into Photoshop. It really is incredible. And I could even go and get rid of this telephone pole. I'll just do a portion of it here because there's quite a bit to be done. This is just finding what's nearby, and it's trying to do the math to figure out what should be in there. So obviously we need to do a little bit more here. But you can see how quickly I've just gone and have eliminated some of the wires. Now this is obviously a complex image, so there's going to be more to be done, but you can see how this is filling in. It's pretty impressive to see how that does fill in. Now, I've left behind a lot of junk up top here. And again, this is where I'm going to come in and use the patch tool. And I'm just going to circle this area here and go look for something that's smooth like that. And maybe I'll take this area here. And again, I'm just going to move this to an area that doesn't have blemishes, just like that. And maybe I don't like the way that cloud is hanging right there. And I'll just move this up here. There we go. So you can see I've just pretty quickly removed some objectionable lines and stuff that's in the picture. Now, what do you do if you're dealing with something as complex as wires going through trees? Well, that can be an issue. But watch what happens if I come in here and again use the spot healing brush. And by the way, when I use this, I have a choice of content aware, create texture, which we don't want to do, or proximity match. I want the content aware because that's going to look for things on either side and it's going to try and figure out what wants to be replaced in there. So again, I'm going to click here, and now I'm going to shift click over here, and let's just see how close this works. That's not too bad. And I could just go in here and just touch up if I had to. Maybe I could just go up here and get rid of those. And of course I'd have to clean this up. But the beauty of this is at first glance, when you look at this, see, I'm just going over this, and look at what it's doing. I'm just tapping, and when you have a complex pattern like trees, you can kind of get away with some of this. You see, there's that telephone pole in there, but at first blush, can you see that that pole's going right through there? You make it small. So you can do some rather amazing things just with those two tools. Let's just get rid of this wire here real quick. So again, if I make this a little smaller, and I will click here, and then I'm just going to click over here by shift click, and that did pretty well, I think, to eliminate that. Here's a wire that's going right through and into this tree. I'll just get rid of that and this lamp post. So you see, I could go on and on here, but I hope you're getting the idea that you can use this tool. It's a pretty powerful tool that you can use to eliminate some of the objectionable power lines that might be going through an image. So now I've just shown you two really important tools that are really useful for being able to touch up some things. Let's go do this on another image. Here we have another image with a couple of wires that would be really nice to eliminate. So I'm just going to zoom in here and take a look at these. And again, I'm going to start with the spot healing brush tool. And if I just take and run right along this, and if I go right to this and let go, it added a little something there that I didn't want it to add. Well, maybe I don't want that, so I'm going to do a Control Z to back out of that. So I'm going to start out here and take that up there to get rid of that. But what happens is if I come in here and if I get really close, well, that worked pretty good. But what can happen is it can pick up the host color and it can sometimes make like a smudge. Let's just look at this one. There's a lot of chromatic aberration in this image. So I'm just going to wipe over here and let's just see what that does. It's not too bad actually. And here's the amazing thing. Photoshop knows sometimes how to replace things. I wonder if it'll find these shingles. Okay, so here's a case where it didn't work so good. So now I'm going to go and take the clone stamp tool and make this brush a little bit smaller. And what I need to do is to make this line go at least over to where this one comes down. If not, maybe all the way over. So if I use the Alt key, in fact, I might even start right here because we've got a nice line coming down and I'll use that. So I'm going to position this right here and click. Now I'm going to come over here and say, I'm going to replace that. Now I'm going to come down here with this, but I'm going to go across, but mind the fact that I'm looking very carefully at where I'm drawing from. And that is off just a little. But I've got this one, but you notice that's not repeating because you see I added that before. So what I need to do is to come and pick up again, and I will come over here, and I'll just paint this down like that. All right, now I need to do a little bit of touch up. This is where I'll go back to the spot healing brush, make this small, and just go over this. And maybe I'll go over this. Those are extra large shingles now. And I'll go here. And I could replace this shingle with one of these if I were so inclined to want to do that. but just for the purposes of this demonstration, now you'll notice that I've got some different hues here, which doesn't blend too well. So again, if I take this patch tool, and I think if I just go over this area here, and if I just move this over to some place, I think that's probably going to fill in pretty nicely. I'll just move this down here. And you can see how quickly we can do this. That's the key. Now, I've never worked on this image ever before. So you're seeing me work on this for the very first time. All right. Now, I could have done the exact same process over here. And I would have to do something up here as well because this is certainly not so good. So we'll just see if I blend it like that. That's not too bad. In fact, I might just want to take out this whole dark area and say replace it with something like that. Now it just looks like a more natural shadow. So once again, I could do some more work in here to clean this up. But you can see how I got this shingle looking not too bad. This one's not too bad. And more importantly, well, we got this wire stuck up there. So I'm going to take the spot healing brush and make the brush a little bit bigger. And once again, if I click here and then shift click up here, I've just taken care of that. And from a distance, that actually doesn't look too bad right there. That's pretty good. Here's another image that we've got several objectionable lines. You know what immediately I look at is what's in the street here. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just go and kind of clean up the road a little bit? And it doesn't take much to do that. And it's okay if there's a little bit of difference in the asphalt because this could have been paved on one day and that was paved on another day, right? So look at that. How long did that take? So that's the spot healing brush, and that was pretty quick. So let's just go take care of this wire up here, and I'm going to start here, and I'm going to shift click down here, and that did a pretty decent job. And if I make this a little smaller, I can bring this into here. Now, that's not too bad. And we'll do the same thing here. Remember, we got these trees, so let's just see what happens if I just try going right through these trees. Not too bad, right? I see another wire here. This might be a telephone wire. And sometimes I'll just go and simply click around just to get rid of some of those wires so you don't draw that straight line. What do you do with a roof line? Well, this too, Photoshop does a decent job with. It knows to follow that line. Now I've got a little bit of a line up here in the sky. I just got rid of that. And then in here, if I just click around, if I make the brush a little smaller, I can probably say that that looks like a branch. This is not a branch, obviously. This is just a matter of go to the one end and then go to the other end, shift click and hold, and then click, and that just takes care of it. Now, let's go over here and just see what we can do with this. We got rid of that one. They've improved this tool quite a bit, and I gotta say, it works pretty slick. Let's just see if I can get this to intentionally smudge. So as I bring this down, if I come right over here to the house, you see we got a little bit of a smudge here. If I click to try and get rid of it, it's just not going away, no matter what I do. This is the place to use the clone tool, because now with the clone tool, it's not going to be doing the blending and it's not going to be doing the content aware. So if I come over here and just choose the sky and click, alt click, and come over here, now I can just be painting this area away, and this won't smudge. That's the beauty of the clone tool. Clone tool doesn't smudge. Now, if I wanted to carry this all the way up, I'd probably come around this line here, and again hold the Alt, and come up here, get that lined up just right, and just go ahead and make that side of the house be proper right up to that area there. So there, no drain gutter. So that's the beauty of the clone tool, lets you go and do the stuff on the edges of things without it blending, without it smudging, but the content aware tool is going to be looking for proximities, looking for things to blend from around the outside. And that's where you can run into some trouble. So that's why it's good to have both brushes. You know, what if we wanted to get rid of this number? A quick way to do that is this patch tool. Or if we wanted to move where that number is, I could use this content aware move tool. Let's just move this number for the fun of it, shall we? So what I need to do is to make a selection. So I'm just going to go around this number just like that. Now I've made the selection. Now I'm going to move this maybe down here, and I'll let go, and I'll commit to that. Now I need to do a little bit of cleanup up here, obviously, because the shading is a little bit different, and this is where I would probably grab the patch tool, and I'm just going to go over this area here and move this back and let that blend right back in. Maybe I'll even take this area here and move that over to let that blend. And I should probably do something in this area here. Probably wasn't the best example, just because there was some interesting shading going on there. But suffice it to say, I think I've successfully moved that number on that house. And you probably wouldn't notice that if you didn't know that I had done that. So now let's apply some of these tools that I've just been demonstrating to faces. First thing I notice here is this gentleman has got an interesting forehead with a lot of like acne and that. And so we'd like to clean this up. Now, there is a plugin that is really great for doing this sort of thing. It's not cheap. It's called Imagenomic Portraiture. And it's a great plugin, and it will actually go and it'll take care of some of this for you. There are some other plugins that you can get that will work wonders on portraits like this. But not having those, what we need to do is come in here and use the tools that we do have. So with the spot healing brush, if I just come in here and just simply tap on these bigger blemishes, you can see what's happening. Now this is going to take a little bit, but let me just go to town here. And we can move this tool, by the way, right here. We can just move across. What this is doing is it's just simply blending what's around the outside of the tool. Okay, so would that take maybe 2 minutes? So now what I think I'd like to do, now that I've gone through and I've taken care of the worst of it, I'm going to go grab this patch tool, and if I just go and circle an area and drag this to some place where the skin is smooth, like over here, see, I can get rid of some of the modeling and some of the imperfections. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll work on a cheek, or I'll work on an area down here just to get an area to be free of blemishes and that. And just like by doing that, I've got a nice little area here that I can now go and use the patch tool to go and replace some of this. Like that area there. And that's pretty smooth right in there. And maybe this area up here. And I'll put that right to there. So you can see what I've just done. That's just improved that quite a bit. I'll grab his nose and we'll just move this over to that nice smooth area. Same thing here, right over to there. Now let's pull up the original. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the original and put it right over on top of the one that I just have edited. So I'm going to take this one and undock it and then pull over layers. I'm going to take this background, and by holding the shift key down, it's going to go exactly in the same place. Then I'll close this. Now I can do a before and after. There's before, there's after. Look at that. Before, after. Do we have more work to do? Yeah, we can. We could work on his chin. We could work a little bit here on the nose. And there's certainly some more to be done right up in this area. But by using the patch tool and by using the spot healing brush, I'm able to go in here and pretty quickly do some touch up to make this gentleman look a little bit nicer. Now, if you ever have to do portraits of people, this is something that I think they expect. And if you can make somebody look better, then the odds of them coming back to you for you to do another portrait for them in the future goes up exponentially because they want to look really good. And this right now would be an image that I would say could probably be published. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Now, if you're concerned about this area up here, once again, we can grab this patch tool, and I'm just going to go and do this. Remember, the patch tool does some blending, so I got to be careful not to go too close to the hair. And I'm just going to come to this area of the cheek that's pretty smooth. And you see that's pretty smooth up there now. And let me show you the before and after once again. That's how we started. Let's just look at this right now. That's where we started. That's where we're ending. What was that, 5 minutes? That can really make a big difference, especially if you're going to be doing a senior portrait, and this is going to be something that'll be forever in a yearbook. Yeah, you want to put your best foot forward. You want the people to look as good as they can be. And that's a great use for these tools that are built into Photoshop, nothing else to buy. Let's go do a little more processing with this image. Since I've got this looking pretty good, I'm going to make a copy of this layer. I'm just going to do a Control J. And now what I'd like to work on is this copy. Remember, I've got the original here, so I'm not going to touch that. So now let's look at under his eyes. He's got some dark areas here, and we can clean that up pretty quickly. Again, I'm going to come use my patch tool, and I'm going to go right under the eyelashes, right in here. And I'm going to drag this right down like that. Now that instantly got rid of wrinkles that are in this area. And I'm going to move this over too. I'm not done yet though. I'm going to do the same thing on this eye. And once again, I kind of like this smooth skin over here. And you can see I need to touch that up just a little bit, don't I? Okay. So what I've just done is I've totally eliminated the wrinkles. That's not natural. Now remember, I had this version that I had cleaned up. But now I've got this version where I've gone even more. Watch what happens if I just change the opacity and blend this back. Just a little. You see, there's 100%. But we can back this off. I'm using scrubbies to make this look so it's believable. Maybe right in there. Now I can show you before and after. Here's before, there's after. Before, after. Just by making a copy and taking out any lines that are underneath and then slightly blending it back, because if you don't do that, to me, that doesn't look real. So once again, by just changing the opacity here, we can soften that underneath the eyes to make that look a little more realistic. And now when I pull back, he looks pretty good. And let's compare that to the original, before and after. So let's try one more image. And I'm immediately going to do a Control J this time, so I've got a copy, so I'll be working on that copy layer. And there are some things that we can do immediately. I'm going to first start with this person's face, and I'm going to start with the spot healing brush. And there's just some little anomalies here that would be nice to be able to get rid of, like right here, maybe in her lip. In her teeth, we've got a lot of reflectance from some light that was in the room. So I'm just going to go and do this. And you see, all I'm doing is I'm just going over this, making sure that I include some of the area around the brush so it knows what to fill in with. So I think, again, you're getting the idea here. So there's a real quick way to get rid of some of those specular highlights. So I'm going to go ahead and make this brush a little bigger and get rid of that little blemish, and that one, and that one, and that one, and this one. And you're going to be careful with some people, because if you look at some models like Cindy Crawford, she's got a mole, and she uses that, I think, as a signature. And so you don't want to get rid of stuff like that. There's some objections in the eyeglasses here, and we can maybe work on that a little bit. That's going to involve some other tools, but for now, I'm going to at least show you how we can make the skin look a little bit better. That's really the purpose of this. Anytime you have to take pictures of people with glasses on, I always tell them take the glasses off and then put them on real quick, or vice versa. And then you can always paint the glasses back in. And that way you don't have any of this business covering the eyes. All right, so again, before, after. Let's get rid of some of these, what do they call these? Crow's feet. So if I were to come over here and use the patch tool once again, and this is going to be a little bit of a challenge because we've got a reflection in here, and I'm going through glasses, which isn't normally something that we would want to do. But I'm just going to go around, and because I got a nice clean cheek over here, I'll do that. And maybe what I'll do is take care of this area here. There we go. And then what I would need to do would be just to blend that back to make that look real again, because I don't want to go all the way. What I would do is I would just bring this back to a minor degree. And again, you get the idea of what we're doing there, just to make that look a little more realistic. So the patch tool can be your friend when you're working with pictures of people and where you're trying to make skin look a little smoother. So there's the patch tool, and working on people's faces is a great use for that. So here's an image that I'm going to use the healing brush on. The healing brush is part of this collection of tools. This works a lot like the clone tool, where I have to set an area from where I'm going to be sourcing from, and then a destination to where it's going to be going. This is going to mostly pick up just the tonality of an area. So I like this area down here, and I'm going to try and use that to clean up this portion of the face. So if I hit Alt and click down here, and then come up here and paint over this, I got to be careful where I'm painting, because see the plus sign? I don't want to get into that ridge. And I might have to come down here and click on this again just to go over this area here. You see, I very quickly was able to get rid of some objectionable lines that were in the skin here. And that looks, I think, a lot better. We've got a little aberration up here, so maybe I'll just draw from above, and I'll just do a quick click down here. And you can see how that's just cleaning up the skin. Again, this one's important that you draw from an area that's got the tonality that you want. If I were to source from like the eye here, for instance, that's not going to work too well up here, because you see what it's just done? It's blended this in, but we don't want that. So we need to make sure that we have a portion of the skin that looks smooth to begin with, and then we're able to work that in. I highly recommend that you go and experiment with all of these tools. Just keep in mind that the healing brush tool works a lot like the clone stamp tool, which is this one underneath. And what I mean by that is these both require a double click, meaning you have to declare a source and then you move to the destination so that you lay down where you're sourcing from. And in each case, it will give you that little left behind plus. You see what's down there? That plus, and where I'm painting up here, it'll show you from where you're painting. And so I'm going to do a Control Z because we obviously don't need that. So let's just take a quick look at the before and after. So this is the after, and here's the before. Let's just zoom in on this baby's face. And again, here's the after, and there's the before. So in this case, I think that healing brush tool did a nice job to clean up some of those lines that were in the baby's face. Well, since we're talking about retouching people, this would be a good image to bring up. I'd like to see what we can do in Adobe Camera Raw right off, because this can sometimes help quite a bit. We'll bring down some of those highlights and some of the white so that we actually see some flesh tone in here, and this side's a little bit dark. And we'll bring up a little bit of texture as well. So now we'll open this image. So let's use these tools that I've been talking about and maybe introduce another way to do some enhancements. First thing I see in this person's face is this little blemish right there. So I'm going to take the spot healing brush and just simply go over it like that. Now, when we have a face that's got light obviously coming from this direction and the other side's a little bit dark, what can be nice is to try and make it equalize a little bit. And it would be great to see a little more detail in the eyes. So I've already done this one little aberration fix right there. I'm going to make another layer, Control J. And this time I'm going to use this lasso tool with a pretty big feather. And I'm just going to roughly come in here and say, this is the shaded part of her face. And I'm, like I say, just doing this really loose. And I would probably want to be a little more exact about this, but just for tonight's purposes, that's not too bad. Now what I'm going to do is I'd like to lighten up this area. So I'm going to go do a Control L. This is levels. If I just simply bring up this side, and I got to bring down the contrast just a little and bring up the whites just a little. And we'll say okay. And now let's just lose the marching ants. Now I can blend that back to make that look just a little more realistic. But just lightening it just a little bit, even like that amount. Look at the before and the after there. And if we look at this from a distance, clearly this is a place where it would be nice to have a fill flash. Now I don't like what's happening under her eye over here, so that might be an area that I would go and try and clean that up and try and make it match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this layer and the one underneath, I'm going to just merge those together. Control E. Now I'm going to do another Control J. And let's just see what we can do in this darkened area here. And again, I think the patch tool might be of use. And let's just see what happens if I were to take this area in here. And what if I were to say, let's make it a little bit softer. Now if I blend that back, you see that's pretty harsh. So I can make that a little bit softer, even like that. And that still looks pretty realistic. It looks like there's I'm going to do a quick Control E there. It looks like the sun's still coming from that angle, but it looks like we got a little more light on this side. And let's go compare that to the original. That's pretty dark. And that's a lot lighter. So that's a simple way to mitigate some high contrast. If you don't have a fill flash on your camera, I use a flash more often during the day than I do any other time. This is an excellent example for why you want to use a fill flash during the day. If your camera has a flash built in, just turn it on and let it work in fill flash mode. The next thing I'd like to do is another Control J, and let's just see what we can do with her eyes. Now this is a case where I might use the quick selection tool just to go and make a quick selection of just her eyes. Here's one, and here's the other. Now I'm going to use the Alt key to eliminate some of this that I don't want. So I just really want the eyes. There we go. Now, I'm doing this on its own layer. If I come in here to Control L for levels, remember, I'm able to bring this up and I can bring up the whites. And it's okay if I go a little too much because remember, I'm going to blend back. Now, there's lots of ways to retouch eyes. And some people might say that this isn't the best way. There may be better, but look at what this is doing. Now, if I just take this opacity and bring this back, and then just bring this up just a little. There. Again, from a distance. So that's not too bad right there. So I'll do a quick Control E, and if I wanted to do another Control J, what I could do is I could try to warm up the other side of her face. I don't know how normal that's going to look, but if I just took the shaded area like that, and maybe I go down and use Control B, and in this case, I'll just add a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow. And I don't want to do too much in the highlights, but maybe just a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow. All right. And then I can again blend that back to get that to be just the right amount. And I'll do a quick Control E, and let's look at the before and after. Here's before, and there's after. And if I don't like that amount, I can even still blend that back to the original. So maybe I'll bring that back just a little bit. And is that believable? I think that looks pretty good. Here's an image that I'm going to demonstrate one more tool. And I'm going to immediately make a copy of this. And the tool I'd like to demonstrate is this liquify. It's under filter. Now, when you have a face in the scene like this, Photoshop does really well to see faces, and they will put this set of tools over here for you to be able to adjust that face. Let's see what they do. So I've just made this a little bigger so we'll be able to see the face a little better. Look at all the face-aware liquify tools that I've got. I can change the eyes, the nose, the mouth, even the face shape. And let's just see what they do. First of all, look at her smile. I can go one way and she's not so happy. I can go the other way and she's really happy. It's right built into Photoshop. And that's pretty cool. You can move the lips. Here's her upper lip. Here's her lower lip. Sometimes the nose width can help make somebody look a little nicer or make the face look a little more desirable. So there, we just brought the nose together. Eye size. By the way, these are linked. One's for the left eye, one's for the right eye. So with these unlinked, look at this, I can move just one eye. Or if I turn on the link, and then this is a case where I do have to hit 0, but if I turn on the link, look at this, I can move both eyes now. Eye height, same thing, we'll just link these. You can see what's happening here. And eye distance, I mean, it really is rather amazing what you can do to work on somebody's image. We can actually take the width of the face and make it a little smaller or a little bigger. Sometimes people like it if you just bring their faces together just a little bit. They'll look at the image and they'll say, yeah, I like that, but they don't know what they like about it. So I'm going to say okay to this. You can see I could have done a lot of other things, but I'm just wanting to introduce this to you so you can see what you can do. Let's zoom in on the face so we can see this a little better. Here is the before, and there's the after. So again, that filter is literally under filters, and then liquefy. And when you go into liquefy, by the way, if you have more than one face in the picture, up here you'll actually get select face number 1 or number 2 or number 3, however many faces you have in that shot. Now, it doesn't always line it up from left to right, I'll tell you that much. So you might have to experiment and go to face number 2, for instance, which might not be the next one to the right. It might be the one to the left. I don't know how it counts the faces in a group, but you can go through and you can do these sorts of adjustments to make somebody in a group smile if they weren't smiling, or you can do well to open their eyes to a degree, or if their mouth was open, you could close it a little bit. There's just some things that you can go in and do using this liquefy tool. And again, this is built right into Photoshop, so there's nothing else to buy. You own it. So there are some retouching tools that I use quite a bit, and I hope this will be helpful when you have to go and do some retouching in your images.